Well. Welcome to another episode of the Cammie Grayson Show right here on SKST Radio. And you have Cammie Grayson in the house. And I have a beautiful, brand new friend from New Orleans, Miss Angela Jones. Welcome to the show, girl.
Thank you. Thank
We've
you
been
for
waiting on this for a
having
long
me.
time.
Oh, I know. And thank you so much for
Yes.
having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Likewise. So, Ladybug, tell us all about you, who you are, and how you got started with your beautiful songstress career.
Okay, well, I'm Angela Jones, and basically currently I'm teaching music at a private school in Thibodaux called eLearning Academy. So currently I'm a music educator, but I'm also their director of enrichment and electives for their afternoon program for kids in kindergarten through eighth grade. So I'm doing that. So I have some administrative duties as well, in addition to playing in our band, we and Mrs. Jones with my husband and our drummer, musician friends that play with us, and so we kind of travel along, all over the Lafourche Parish and Terrebonne Parish area performing. So that's where I am right now,
Okay.
and so I'd like to kind of just hop in I guess a time machine and go back to let's travel back some decades because that's who I am now, and I love music. I don't know. There's an echo. Is that on your end too?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I don't know what happened. So okay,
I said we'll continue. It's
we're going
good.
back through time.
Yes, we're going back in time because I mean, as a mature woman, 56 years old, really enjoying a full life with music in it every single day. Um, it started somewhere. There were seeds planted very early on in my life,
Okay.
and as an educator, I'd like to kind of tie in a lot of ththings with this conversation, in addition to sharing some music with you guys.
Ooh,
But education is important, and what we plant in the minds of our children when they're really young is so crucial. And the earlier you can get a kid tapped into their passion, what they're good at, what they love, pay attention to what they're fascinated by, and you cultivate that in the child, you can avoid so many pitfalls that hit them when they get to their teen years. And I've watched this happen. I've watched this play out time and time again, and it did that for me.
wow.
So my earliest memories of music, I'd have to say, or my grandmother singing to me as a young child. I was about 2 years old when I started living with my grandmother, and she would sing those old gospel hymns, and so she would take me to church with her. So
Oh,
those were the first sounds that I heard. Um, the the women in white, the ushers
uh,
in
uh,
their white, you
uh,
know, clothing and their white chapel caps,
mm-hmm.
all in a row on the front bench of the church, and then they would moan, oh Lord, you sure been good to me. They would moan and pray and moan and pray. And I was a little kid, I took everything to heart. I was that kid who took everything to heart, and so those are my first memories of singing. And then while I was going to church and hearing the gospel sounds, back there in the day, back in the early 70s, we didn't have all this cable TV and all this
Right,
fancy
right.
programming. It was very basic. And there was programming for children at specific times of the day. And so one of the programs my grandmother would sit me in front of was Mr. Rogers.
All
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day to be neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I've
Yeah.
always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. And so those songs, I think, just come to me. And he taught us to be kind and neighborly, And he was just such a warm, loving figure.
Yeah.
So, in addition to shaping my attitude towards my my neighborhood and the people who live in it, and how I should be kind, because that's what was every day that was drilled in me. And now I see it. I
Yeah.
try to be that, you know. And so and then there was jazz played on the show, so I heard the jazz. And then from there on PBS, opera was played. You know, I heard Peking opera, which is that Chinese opera, which is like very, very strange, with the big gongs and the yeah, yeah, very kind of. And then the Italian opera, and I saw Jesse Norman,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, and so, and then as I got older and started singing in church, I sang my first solo. I want to say I was probably around 10 years
Okay.
old, 9, 10 years old.
Okay.
Um, and I sang my first solo, and my mentor was a cousin of mine named Vivian, and she mentored me. And
Nice.
so I started kind of my first time singing in front of people was as a kid, and I was very nervous and I was shaking and I messed up, and I had trouble singing the high notes, but little did I know the reason was our organist, bless him, he's such a sweet man, Mr. Titus Salisbury. He didn't play in very many keys.
Gotcha.
So he couldn't help me find the key that was best for my voice at the time. And so I had to sing in the key that he was able to play.
Right.
And you know, so that was kind of the foundation. And then from there I kept singing in church, kept trying to sing the opera, woo, driving my family crazy. I joined the choir in middle school. I joined the choir.
Oh, look at that beautiful cup.
I'm from the West Bank, Evening
That's
Star
right.
Baptist Church. That's where it all happened. Evening Star Baptist Church, and Reverend Francis was the pastor at the time. And look, mass choir with my peers. I mean, we as a peer group in my teens, gospel choir was a huge thing in
Wow.
like the 80s. By the time I got to high school, I mean, all the churches had really big gospel choirs full of young people, and we would have an annual mass choir event in Marrero
I remember
at the
her.
church. And yes, and we would all come together, and it was this huge mass choir. It was just wonderful, you know. And so the church was really involved, and it was a really important, you know, place for me as far as music was concerned, you know. And so yeah, so then from there, you know, I got my first solo outside of church,
Okay.
and it was the song from Mahogany. Do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know? You remember that?
Oh, I love that song.
You
Oh
remember
my
that song?
gosh. Down the Ross,
I,
baby.
at like 14, 13, 14 years old, it didn't quite sound like that, but I loved that song too back then, and it's very dear to me.
Oh,
And so that was my first solo. My second one, you know, as far as different, you know, peers at school, teachers, you know, other kinds of people that I'm maybe not as close to.
right.
And so, yeah, and then from there, I went on to high school and kept singing in a choir. Um, but it was interesting how when I graduated high school and went into college, I didn't think I could like, because my choir teacher, he was so sweet, but we didn't have a lot of conversations about, okay, no, you can major in music if you want to. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I just sang in the choir, and we did
Right.
choir things. And then I went to Nicholls, and I entered as a psychology major.
Okay.
I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
I wanted to help
I
people
can
because I
see
felt
that.
like, yeah, I felt like I had some things I went through growing up that were challenging me emotionally and mentally, you know, and learning that my brain is an organ, and how trauma affects it. And again, music helped to heal a lot of that. Having music as a positive influence in my life kept me out of a lot of things. Like I said, it was that those seeds planted early on.
Mm-hmm.
So even when it got rocky,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets hairy for us, right? We're going to get tested.
Absolutely.
We're going to get tested. And so it gets hairy, but then you got that concert and you love that song and you got to show up and you go, you know what? I'm not going to do that because I got this.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And so I go to college, and then a friend of mine, Margie Neal, who's a good friend now, she was working as a grad assistant at Nicholls State University. It was Dr. Kenneth Klaus's first year as the choir director there at Nicholls. This was the fall of 1984.
Okay.
And I knew that I wanted to sing. So I joined the choir at Nicholls to sing, just to be in the choir because I love to sing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they had to vocalize us to see like what our vocal range was, and just to see what voice part we're supposed to sing in the choir. And I really, even though I was in choir, I didn't have much musical training. As far as, I had no private voice before this, and I had no piano formal anything. I knew a little bit about reading music, but just the bare minimum. So she pulls me in to vocalize me, and I get higher and higher and higher, and she turns around and she looks at me. She's like, "What are you majoring in again?"
Wrong major.
I just said, "Now wait, psychology? No, wait." And like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "You can major in music." I'm like, "What do you mean major in music? What are you talking about?" You can major. What can I do with that? You can teach music. You can teach. Wait. Hold up. Wait.
Stop.
Now, this is me expressing how it felt inside. Back then, I was just, "Oh, really? Let me go change my major." But inside, I was like, "Oh my goodness, you mean I could like get paid to like to teach people how to sing?" No, you're kidding. You're kidding. No, you're kidding me. No. Come on. No. You've got to forgive me. That was my feeling inside.
Wow.
It was like the best thing ever. And I started to just view everything in my life so differently moving forward. And then I was in the chamber choir. And then that spring, there was a production of The Sound of Music. So I was able to get my first role in a musical.
Wow.
That's where the stage comes in. And then at the same time, and so I'm getting married and having babies kind of interwoven into all of this. Because in the end of my freshman year, I got pregnant and I had my first child the fall. So I stayed out a couple of semesters of school. Mm-hmm. And so when I got back into it, so I had that musical under my belt, and it was The Sound of Music, and I was the novice.
Oh my
and so I got to go. So I was wearing the clothes that Maria wore, like, mm-hmm. because it's like when I came in, I had my clothes, and then when she left with my clothes, because that's what happens, because they didn't own anything. Mm-hmm. So when they would leave, if they had a reason to leave, they would just take on the clothing of someone who had arrived and left their clothes. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first musical. Wow. And then after that, my first opera was Suor Angelica, and I played, but can you still see me fine? Because something just popped up. I'm not going to worry about it. As long as you can still see me fine. Okay. Okay. And then after that, it was just community theater. Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. That was one of my first bigger roles. I was the narrator, and I got to dress in a genie costume.
Oh, nice.
And Dr. Klaus and I, for many, many years, Dr. Kenneth Klaus, he conducted the orchestra for that show. And that was back then we had actual orchestras and not music tracks like you have nowadays. You see a lot of the theaters, the local theaters use a lot of recorded tracks. It's just easier, and so back then there was a live orchestra, and we did that in Thibodaux at the Thibodaux Playhouse. Okay. And so from that point on, it was just more of the community theater in Homa, La Petite, the Apple Tree, Oh my gosh, Nonsense in Thibodaux. I've done so many musicals and shows.
It sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Sounds
yeah. And
amazing.
I don't know if I need to pause for questions because,
No, no,
or if
no, no.
you have
Hey, I'm
anything.
enjoying this because
Okay.
being, like I said, I lived there 3 years, and so you're naming places that I've been to. I've been to Thibodaux, I've been to Homa, so all these places. Just envisioning what you have done and how you accomplish your goals, going through all that. So it's
Hmm.
amazing. It's amazing.
Hmm.
So go on.
Yes. Okay. And so when I graduated college, I became a choir director.
Okay.
And my first choir direct, my first music job was at in St. Charles Parish
Okay.
in the spring of 1991, 1992, excuse me, 1992. Let me get my date straight. And it was at Norco Elementary, and I had the pleasure of, for the only time in my life, really teaching kindergarten through I think fifth grade
Nice.
general music. And they had a really awesome elective program there for the kids. They had PE every day. They had music. They had all sorts of activities, and so I got to teach every kid in the school. Every single kid in the school, I got to teach every week.
That is
And yes, yes, yes. And then from there, I went to Thibodaux and taught at East and West Thibodaux Middle School.
okay.
And then life took me, when you start teaching, when you really get into it, and they say it's like the first 3 years is like your trial by fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there are times when I kind of stepped back and went back to it for various reasons, which I think sometimes it's good to kind of affirm, your purpose. Sometimes you need to step back, and reflect on it. And so from there, I was in Terrebonne Parish,
Okay.
teaching choir at Houma Junior High School and Terrebonne High School.
Girl.
And so I was doing, and the way the campuses are set up, it's like they're pretty much on the same property, but
Mm-hmm.
Terrebonne High is here, and then there's the football stadium, and then Houma Junior High. And so my
Gotcha.
kid, and at the time, my classroom was in the stadium with the two bands, and the kids would walk to me from the school, so I was kind of in the middle.
Okay.
And so I did that for a little while, and then I stepped back a second and did gifted enrichment. So I was able to, like, when I decided to come back into teaching, there weren't any music positions, and I decided to just take what I could get. And there was a job that was a good fit for me, and that was as a gifted enrichment teacher.
Okay.
So that was a job where I would take these really bright kids, and just expand them with challenging puzzles and activities that just cause them to look at life more critically.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very expansive kind of thing. It was really cool. I loved that job. And then while I was in that position, a dear, dear friend of mine, Sherry Jones, she was the principal at H.L. Bourgeois High School. She knew that I had performance experience.
Mm-hmm.
And she also knew me because her husband, Ronnie Jones, was the band director at Terrebonne High School with me. And let me just say that while I was at Terrebonne and Houma Junior High, my good friend, Glenn Dagenhart, he was the band director at Houma Junior High. We met in college, and he was like a late in life student. So I'm gonna bring him in a little bit later because let me tell you, he was so inspirational in, because we talked when we were in college and said we're going to teach together one day. And
Mm-hmm.
while I was at Houma Junior High and Terrebonne High School, we had that chance for that 3.5 years to actually teach together. So shout out to you, Glenn. All right. So anyway, Ronnie and I worked together, and so his wife Sherry, she knew me from that, and when she needed a choir director at her high school, she she kind of lured me in with, "Oh, come judge my cheerleader auditions. I need somebody to come judge my cheerleader auditions. Are you available?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." You're like, "Okay, great." So while I'm there, she's like walking around her school. This was the only time a principal ever wined and dined me in public education.
Oh my
Other than her, I was just like, "Oh, you whatever." You don't get a lot of that in
God.
public
Right.
education. That's why it's hard to keep teachers, but that's another conversation for another day. She was oh, look at our auditorium, and come see your classroom, and look at all of your facilities, and you have all my support because you know my husband's a band director, you know I support music. I'm like, okay. I stayed there. That was the longest time I ever stayed at one school. I
Oh,
stayed there for 12 and a half years.
wow.
Now, you know how in the Bible, when how it says how there arose another Pharaoh who didn't know Moses, or who didn't know, the children of Israel,
Uh-huh.
you know, and they started getting treated harshly,
Mm-hmm.
so there's leadership that they didn't hire you.
Right.
So they didn't see the value in you and put you in that position. And so, as leadership changes, um, the value kind of has a tendency to diminish. And then as the system changed, and then Common Core came into being, you know, No Child Left Behind came into being, that drastically impacted what we were able to do musically,
Right.
with the kids, and just creatively with the kids in the school system, you know. And so, but despite all of that, we keep doing it.
Yeah.
We do everything that we have to do. And then I left Terrebonne Parish at H.L. Bourgeois and returned to Lafourche Parish in 2014.
All right.
And I got, yes. So
Full
my
circle.
last full, and literally, let me tell you how full circle it was. It was full circle to the T. And I knew something was about to change in my life, really major, when this happened. So I was able to work at so many schools in Lafourche Parish as a choir director. Like, I started off at Central, and I was at Central Lafourche High School and supporting the middle schools. And then it was Central Lafourche High School and Thibodaux High School. And then we lost staff in South Lafourche, and between me and another really, really fine music teacher, Sharon Leach, she and I team taught these schools, and we would travel up and down the bayou. So the most I carried for 1 year was traveling South Lafourche High School, Thibodaux High School, and Central Lafourche High School,
Mm-hmm.
spanning the parish. And that allowed us to do some cool, innovative things, with the kids musically, and the tryout, you know,
Mm-hmm.
us teaming, she teaching theory, me teaching the mechanisms of singing to the kids. And then eventually I ended up before I left the public school system, I was at Thibodaux High, Central Lafourche High School, and West Thibodaux Middle School.
Wow.
So that's where the full circle comes in, right there at West. And really, it's interesting that they're building a new school. They're combining. I don't know if you knew this. They're combining East and West Thibodaux Middle School. They had their last rival football game that they're going to have ever.
Oh, wow.
Hmm. So it's going to be just Thibodaux Middle School.
Wow. Now, are they doing that because of the way things are now with, not being able to find teachers, or what is the rationality behind that? Do you know?
I'm not sure of all of the layers. I think it's probably multiple reasons.
Okay.
But both of the school buildings were old,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they're pretty much on the same property. It's
Yeah.
this huge lot. If you remember, and East is on one end and
Mm-hmm.
West is on the other end. And they combine, like, the lower levels are all together. So it just, I think it's just logical. It was the right thing to do. It just made
Gotcha.
sense. If you're going to have to repair or rebuild, new
Might as
or
well.
build new structures, you might as well just, and
Yeah.
then so it eliminates that rivalry thing, which I think is good, considering all these kids pretty much are from the same communities.
Right. Exactly.
It's like, it works when you're not in the same city. It's kind of okay. You don't have to, like, live amongst each other every day. But and you see the rivalry attitude sometimes outside of the
Side of
school.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
sometimes
Thibodeau's not
it
that
happens.
big. It's not humongous. You know what I mean? So,
And that's just my personal opinion. So,
yeah. But no, I mean, I
mhm.
agree. It's a little city. It's not that big for them to, like you said, they're on the same block. They're there together. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's one people. They're one people. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to you and your singing.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Let's go back to me and my singing. Um, and so while working in education, I got to do the formal stuff, college, very formal singing. And outside of church, I didn't really like, I sang to the radio. People are shocked when I tell them this. I sang to the radio um, a lot. And a lot of these songs I'm singing now, when I read the words, when I prepare them to sing them for our gigs, I'm like, I didn't know those were the words because I had made up my own, you know?
I've done it many of times.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that what that's really saying? Like another one. Okay, you know that Steve Perry, oh Sherry. Okay, I thought he was saying, oh Sherry, I'm in love. But it's oh Sherry, our love holds on.
Oh my
I had my own lyrics. So so I was like and in college where I went to school, you were taught bel canto, you were taught the beautiful classical singing. You
mm-hmm.
know, and my first formal teacher taught to avoid the lower chest register, or to handle that very lightly, not to really dig into it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so, you know, you get different teachers and you learn different ways, but pretty much it was kind of boxed in. And even with the choir thing, teaching my kids, I taught it very, this is the way your vowels have to be so,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be uniformed, and we all have to blend together. And there's a lot of sacrificing and compromising of the individual creativity to create this oneness.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a place, but it was all I did. And then COVID happened.
Wow.
And prior to that, we started kind of working with some bands, and we created a band called Entourage, and we had a few gigs. It never really took root because COVID happened right when it was getting traction. COVID happened. And then let me back up. 2014, my now husband and I, we did a short little gig at the Marriott in Homa. So that was my first time kind of just doing my own. It was just him on keyboard and me singing, doing jazz standards. And they had a lot of people who were there working in the oil field coming down, you know, staying in the hotel, and they needed kind of entertainment that, you know, they didn't
Right.
want to leave the facility. And so I had that, you know, so I had like dabbed in it, tiptoed around it, you know, here, try a little bit here. Okay. All right. Reflect, try a little bit here, reflect. And then, like I said, COVID happened. And then a friend of mine, Brian Dupuy, he's a band director at Thibodaux High School. He asked me to sing for a fundraiser for the Children's Museum in Thibodaux. This was in March of this year. So now we're in 2022.
Okay.
And because there are a lot of things that happen there along the way, stage experiences and such, you know. But really, it was right now, it was what Brian did for me that was really special. And it was a jazz gig. The theme was Great Gatsby, Roaring Twenties, Got My Flapper Dress, straight jazz standards all night.
Wow.
It was so much fun. It was so wonderful. And we were with Chucky C out of New Orleans. I don't know if you know Charles Elam. Charles Chucky C. Elam, a New Orleans musician, plays saxophone. He was with us, and it was so much fun. And so this is March. And so I'm like talking to Jim about it, my husband. I'm like, man, I wish we could do more of this. You
Yeah.
know, I want to do more of this. I really love the way that felt. And I had been um, really working on my vocal training. Independently, though, I stopped. I hadn't been going to a vocal coach, but I found the Cheryl Porter vocal technique. I don't know if you know Cheryl Porter's technique, but I found her technique, and she has a video where she sang in all kinds of styles using every aspect of her range, from vocal fry, chest voice, on up to whistle tone.
Oh wow.
All, I mean, in all styles, she sings everything. I'm like, wait a minute, I can do this. You know, it's all about the technique. It's all about having the command over the instrument to create a myriad of colors and sounds and textures. You know, that you don't have to just stay in a box.
Right.
So
Right.
so I had started prior to March, that December, that fall, I started training. And you know how the Bible says your gift will make room for you,
Mhm.
and another quote, I don't know who to attribute this to, but my daughter Elise shared it with me. She said that luck, the definition of luck, is when preparation meets opportunity.
Nice.
So, so I was prepared, felt good, and then so one night, it was the end of April. We were just driving around town. We wanted to get something to eat. The place we tried to go to was closed. And I searched on my phone. I'm like, I need something to eat. I'm hungry. I see Lumiere Blues and Jazz Bistro. I'm like, Jim, it says they have live music. Let me call and see what kind of food they have. I called. I said, hey, what kind of food do y'all have? She's like, oh, we have soul food. I'm like, okay, all right. She's like, is it soul food? What kind of food? It's like Cajun, like soul food. I'm like, all right. So I hear somebody singing. It was Devin McCarthy in the background, really bluesy, something bluesy. I'm like, Jim, I said, they have live music over there. I said, we gotta go.
Excited.
Said, we've got to go. We got to go to Lumiere. And we sat there and we had a good meal and good music and we talked to Mitzi and we pulled out, they have a piano that's there and I sang at last for them. This was after after they closed. We hung out, I don't know, about an hour maybe after they closed. We were hanging out and we were able to like work out something that made for Cinco de Mayo. That was our very first gig
Nice.
as we and Mrs. Jones. That
Love
was
it.
our very first gig, and
Love
that was May 5th, 2022.
it. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yep. And so we've been touring around the area. There are lots of bands doing it. And we started there doing mostly jazz, working in the blues and the soul. And other places we play a more of a mixture.
Mhm.
Like there's some places we don't do any jazz. We do country if people request it.
Mhm.
There's some tunes that I really like. No one has to request, like crazy. I'm crazy for feeling so lonely. I'll just want to sing that sometimes. Um Sade, smooth operator, uh rock, classic rock. You name it. You name it. We do it,
Oh,
and we love to make our audience happy, our friends happy when they come out to see us. So we appreciate the requests because it allows me to learn new songs,
mhm.
and that expands me because especially if it's an artist like Amy Winehouse. I listen to Amy Winehouse, but a lot of people love Valerie. A lot of people love Valerie. And I feel that I learned something from all those artists. I may
Mhm.
not sing like her on my own, but if I get a chance to sing her, I could do. Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the waters. I could play around with my voice
Yes.
and find myself in her
Mhm.
music.
I
That
love
makes sense.
absolutely love it. Very versatile. So,
Mhm.
Angela, how do people get in contact with you if they want to book you?
If they want to book us, they can go to we and sign Mrs. Jones on Facebook and they can message us there, or they can email us and this is spelled out all letters, we and Mrs. Jones at gmail.com. So you can contact us those two ways. I also have a phone number on our Facebook page if you'd like to reach us there.
Wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got your gigs going. What's next for you, Ladybud? If there's no stopping you.
Oh, what's next? This is how I do. I take my foot, each step I take, there's nothing there. And I just plant my foot down in faith and let my passion guide me, let my love for music, my love for education, my appreciation for the people who inspire me along the way, just fuel my purpose for being here. I feel that music is my purpose. I have a lot of them, and it layers into my 9 to 5. You know, it's that undercurrent, and I just want to inspire other young people, anybody of all ages. I'm gonna say young people of all ages. How about that?
Love it.
I want to ignite the inner child that may have been stifled by a belief that, oh, I'm too old, I can't do it. Oh, it's too late. I hear that. I'm like, who says it's too late? If you decide it's too late, it is. But if you decide it's not, it's not. And so I think for me is to just continue to expand and grow and let it organic. I want to do original music. I have lots of ideas recorded, you know, lots of things written down in a notebook. And so I think if I were to look at the next step would be we have a studio, we have a recording studio. That's where I am right now. So I guess the logical thing would be to make that come to fruition.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have a number one fan here in Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm here to support you, whatever you need. I'm here for you, girl. And
Thank
I love
you.
getting that feeling of being back in New Orleans. That just made my day.
Oh,
And
good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your interest in what I'm doing. I
yeah,
appreciate it so much.
absolutely. So I know I might be pushing it just a little bit, but can we get a little song?
Okay, let's see. Do you have a preference? Do you have a favorite?
Don't have a favorite. Whatever you like. I just want to hear your voice. That's my
Let's
favorite.
see. Mm. I think the one that was on my heart before the interview. Let me get another sip.
Go ahead. No
My
rush.
throat. One of the songs that, and I'm going to go back early. Let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
You know, one of the songs that touched me and made me cry as a child. They would sing in church as the song after the prayer, like they would pray, and then there would be like a song. It was like a song of prayer. And that's what I like to leave us with today.
I love it.
He's sweet, I know. He's sweet, I know. Storm clouds may rise and strong winds may blow, but I'll tell the world wherever I may go, that I have found a Savior, and He's sweet, I know.
Thank you. I love it. Absolutely love it.
You're welcome.
Girl, don't be a stranger.
I won't.
Don't be a stranger.
I won't. Have me anytime.
You want to share, just let me know.
I'll let you know.
Let me know.
I'll let you know. I might have a big announcement one day soon, huh?
You will claiming it. Claiming
yeah,
it.
I believe in speaking it. Oh, yes.
There you go. There you go. Okay, guys. Miss Angela Jones, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're
girl.
welcome. You're welcome.
Your voice, and I'm just. This is the birthday month. How about that?
Happy birthday!
Thank you. It's the 19th, but I'm celebrating all month long. So everyone that's on the show this month, that's why you got the beautiful frame, because everybody is celebrating my birthday with me. So thank you so very much. Thank you so
You're
very
welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, guys. Until next week, right here at SKST Radio.